Hi everyone, welcome back. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is Stephen, and in my early 70s, I spent most of my life working for the government. I've always lived a simple life, full of love. My wife, Margaret, passed away a year ago. She was my partner in everything. She fought diabetes for over 20 years, managing it as best she could with medication, strict diets, and regular checkups. But in the end, her body just gave out. I knew logically that one of us would go first. That's what people always say. It's part of life. But when it happened, it still felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff with no one holding my hand anymore. I had spent so long caring for her, checking her blood sugar, driving her to appointments, even learning how to cook so she could eat healthier, that when she was gone, I didn't just lose my wife. I lost my purpose. The house got quieter. Meals felt pointless. Her side of the bed stayed untouched for weeks. I'd sit there and think, well, now what? But even in that pain, I found comfort in the life we built. Margaret and I were married for 46 years. Not perfect years. We had arguments, we went through hard times, but they were ours. And through all of it, our biggest joy was our daughter, Haley. From the moment she was born, we made it our mission to give her the best we could. We didn't grow up with much ourselves, so we wanted her to have opportunities we never had. We put her through private school when we could have used that money to fix up the house. We drove old cars so we could save for her college fund. No loans, no debt. We paid for everything, including her wedding, which we were proud to do. Watching her walk down the aisle with a smile on her face made every sacrifice feel worth it. Haley is grown now, married to a man named Marcus. They live out of state, about 8 hours drive away, with their 2 little ones, my grandkids. They're good kids. I don't get to see them as often as I'd like, but I try to keep in touch with the calls and birthday gifts. After Margaret passed, it felt like they were the last bit of family I really had left. To keep myself busy, I tried television, I tried reading, and even joined a community card game group for a few weeks. But nothing stuck and filled the hole of emptiness I felt. So I went back to my old love, woodworking. Martha, my wife, used to joke that if she ever lost me in the house, all she had to do was follow the smell of sawdust. One day, I was fixing up an old bookshelf in the garage. It needed some sanding and a new bracket. I didn't think much of the latter. I'd used it 100 times before. But that's the thing about getting older. You forget that your body doesn't rebound like it used to. I missed a step coming down. Just one. I landed hard on my side, bruised my ribs, and wrenched my shoulder badly enough that I couldn't lift my right arm for days. It hurt like hell, but I didn't tell anyone. Not even Haley. Because I knew exactly what she'd say. She'd tell me to quit working on projects, sell the tools, and stop climbing anything higher than the porch step. I toughed it out. I wrapped my ribs, took Tylenol, and slept in the recliner for 2 nights because I couldn't get in and out of bed. I thought I could ride it out unnoticed, but that hope didn't last long. A few days later, my nephew dropped by unannounced. He saw the way I moved and asked what happened. I brushed him off. But he could tell something wasn't right. I should have known he'd tell Haley. She called that evening, her voice full of concern and a touch of frustration. "Dad," she said, "you shouldn't be alone. You scared me." She didn't give me much room to argue. She said the kids missed me, that the house was too quiet without their grandpa around, and that I could recover more easily at her place. "It's not about babysitting you," she told me. "We just want you close. The house is big enough. You'll have your own space, and the kids would love having you there." She made it sound like I'd be doing them a favor, not the other way around. I could hear the sincerity in her voice, the worry under her words. And I'll be honest, part of me didn't want to say no. I missed her. I missed the kids. And I was tired of eating dinner alone every night. So I agreed to move in with them and let go of my place. I was already old. So why would I still want to keep a big house like this? Haley and her husband, Marcus, offered to handle selling the house, and I didn't fight it. I gave them the legal authority to take care of the paperwork. Honestly, I didn't have the mental bandwidth to deal with open houses or phone calls with realtors. They said it would be easier that way, and I trusted them. Their family. That still meant something to me back then. So I packed what I needed, mostly clothes and a few framed photos, and moved into their guest room. The day I arrived, I was happy I'd be closer to my grandkids, help out around the house, and stay useful. That was important to me. But the reality of moving in was different from what I expected. You don't realize how much your sense of dignity is tied to having your own front door until it's gone. Their home was beautiful, spotless, and very much theirs. I was stepping into a space that already had a rhythm, a flow, and I was an interruption, no matter how well-intentioned. My grandkids were the bright spot. They ran to me when I walked in the door. "Grandpa Pops." They shouted, tackling my knees. I laughed for the first time in weeks. I started making them breakfast in the mornings and walking them to the bus stop. It gave me purpose. I wasn't just existing, I was doing something that mattered, even if it was small. Still, I noticed things. Haley and Marcus never said anything outright, but there was a quiet stiffness in how they moved around me. So I made myself small, respectful. I never walked into their side of the house, no matter the reason. I made sure to clean up every dish I used, wipe down the counters, and fold my blankets neatly in the guest room. I didn't want to be seen as someone who came to take. I used my pension to buy groceries and paid toward the electric bill without being asked. That's how I was raised. If you're under someone's roof, you pull your weight. You don't make excuses. After a month or two, I started noticing little things that didn't add up but didn't scream trouble either. Mail that used to come addressed to me stopped arriving. When I asked Haley about it, she brushed it off, saying she had everything redirected to make things simpler. I didn't think much of it. She was always organized like that. But then I started to get this feeling that my house I gave them power of attorney to sell had been sold, but no one told me. One afternoon, I finally worked up the courage to ask her directly, "Did the sale go through?" And she just smiled, kept stirring the soup, and said, "Don't worry, everything will be handled." That was it. No more details. It left me with a knot in my stomach, but I didn't want to seem suspicious or ungrateful. I figured as long as my pension was still hitting the bank and I wasn't being tossed out on the street, maybe I could let it slide. But soon after asking about the house and its sale, Marcus, my son-in-law, started acting differently. He began making these little comments that felt like jabs disguised as jokes. If I asked if they could get me something I couldn't get for myself, he'd sigh or mutter, "We're not running a retirement home, you know." And just like that, I'd shrink a little. I stopped asking questions. Stopped making conversation. I didn't want to be that guy, the needy father-in-law hanging around like an unwanted shadow. So I started staying in my room more, reading, napping, pretending I wasn't hungry when dinner was clearly late or missing altogether. Then came the night that really did something to me. I got up to use the bathroom, and the door wouldn't budge. At first, I thought maybe someone was in there. But after a few knocks and some light rattling, I noticed a new lock. One of those small, sturdy privacy locks. I brought it up the next morning, trying to sound casual. "Hey, Marcus, did you guys install a new lock on the hall bathroom?" He didn't even look up from his phone when he said, "Yeah." Then I asked why. He replied, "You're here, but this is still our home, and I do what I want." That one stuck with me. And in that moment, I understood where I stood. I didn't argue. I didn't want to cause tension. I just nodded and let the weight of that answer settle. Things only got colder after that. The kitchen, which used to feel like neutral territory, started to feel off limits. One night they came home late, past dinner time, kids tired, house quiet. I was hungry, hadn't eaten since noon, so I went to make a quick piece of toast. As soon as the toaster popped, Marcus walked in and stopped dead in his tracks like I'd stolen something. "Would you mind asking first before using things? We have a system here." That's what he said. I looked over at Haley, who was at the dining table helping the kids with their homework. I thought maybe she'd say something, lighten the mood, stick up for me, something. But she didn't even look at me. Just kept flipping through a math workbook and said quietly, "He's right, Dad. You're not a guest anymore. You live here. You have to adapt." I went back to my room without the toast. Sat on the edge of the bed, and couldn't explain what I was feeling at that moment. My presence had turned into a problem, And once you start to feel like a burden, it's hard to unfeel it. I guess I started pulling back before I even realized I was doing it. Every little thing became a silent reminder that I didn't belong. I'd ask a question, and I'd get a clipped answer, or worse, just a sigh. So I stayed in my room more. But the quiet started to get heavy. I started thinking, why are they acting like this? I helped raise Haley. I changed her diaper. I paid for her braces, her schooling, and her first car. And now I had to ask if I could have an orange? It didn't add up. I called an old friend, Larry, someone I've known for decades. Just needed to vent. I told him what was happening, and he went silent for a second. Then he said, "Steve, I hate to even say this, but are you sure they're not trying to make you miserable enough to agree to a retirement home?" I laughed, shrugged it off, said Haley would never do that. But after I hung up, the words kept circling back. What if? One Friday, Haley stood in the doorway and said, "We're going away for the weekend, just Marcus and me. The kids will be with Marcus's mom." I figured I was just holding down the fort, so I nodded and said okay. They left not long after. I stood in the doorway and waved them off, like I always do. But when I went inside, I walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge. It was practically empty. Pantry? Dry rice, a couple cans of beans, not even a can opener in sight. And no coffee. They knew I drank coffee every morning. I checked the counter. There was a little note in Haley's handwriting. It said, "Don't open the door to strangers." That was it. No mention of food. No check-in call. No car keys left behind. Their second car was still in the garage, but they'd taken both sets of keys with them. I was stuck in their house, miles from the nearest store, and I couldn't drive, couldn't eat, couldn't even make coffee. And that's when my anger stopped simmering and started boiling. They didn't forget. They didn't make a mistake. This wasn't an oversight. This was deliberate. This was them showing me exactly how little space I was allowed to take up in their life. That thought of them sending me to a retirement home returned. I had pushed it away earlier, but it came roaring back, and this time I didn't laugh it off. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about how I'd gotten here, how I gave up my place, my space, everything that felt like me, just to be closer to my daughter and my grandkids. I didn't come here expecting luxury. I didn't need pampering. All I wanted was to feel like I belonged. When the sun finally came up, I didn't wait around to see if things would get better. I got up and started packing what little I had into a single duffel bag. I didn't write a note. I just zipped up the bag, walked outside, and called a rideshare. The driver didn't ask questions, as I asked to be taken to an extended stay hotel. Once I got settled in, I pulled out the small spiral notebook I always carry in my jacket. I flipped to the number of my old lawyer, a man I hadn't spoken to in years, but who always treated me with respect. When he picked up, I told him everything. I didn't know what could be done, but I knew I couldn't stay quiet. Steve didn't hesitate. By Monday morning, we were filing paperwork to start a formal elder abuse claim against Haley and Marcus. I didn't enjoy doing it. That's my daughter, and I still love her. But love doesn't mean tolerating cruelty. Steve didn't just help me with the legal stuff. He helped me find a place to land. Within a few days, I had a spot in a small independent living community just across town. There were card games in the common room, a small garden where some of the residents grew tomatoes, and most importantly, my own space. A place where I didn't have to ask permission to eat. A place where I wasn't a burden. A place where I could finally breathe. As the legal process unfolded, everything was laid out in front of me. The legal paperwork, the calls from the attorney, the questions from the mediator. It all pointed to one truth. Haley and Marcus were in serious financial trouble. Drowning in debt, behind on their mortgage, credit cards maxed out. And I was their asset. They saw my house as their escape route. Selling it off was their way out of the hole they dug. It hit me like a punch in the chest. My own daughter saw me as a burden and my home as a lifeline, something to be quietly taken from me the moment I became inconvenient. I thought Marcus's coldness was just personality. I didn't realize it was a calculation. What cut the deepest wasn't the money. It wasn't even the house. It was the way Haley sat across from me in mediation, eyes glassy, voice trembling, and said, "We didn't know how to tell you. Not, we're sorry. Not, we should never have done this. Just, they didn't know how to say it aloud while doing it behind my back." And when the legal pressure started building, when my attorney made it clear they wouldn't walk away from this clean, they switched tactics. Suddenly, Haley was kind again. She brought up memories. She sent me photos of the grandkids. She said she missed our dinners, asked if I wanted to come back home, said we could start fresh. But all I saw was panic behind the kindness. They needed me back under their roof, back where they could control the narrative, keep eyes off what they'd done. Maybe they were scared I'd take everything public. Maybe they were just hoping I was still the same soft-hearted dad who would fall for their smiles. But I wasn't that man anymore. I told her no. I told her I loved her, but I wasn't stupid. And I wasn't coming back.